everyone, how are you? I am Atiksha, your resident bibliophile, and today I will tell you all about the books that I read in September and about my October TBR. But first, an announcement. My first book went out into the market a few days ago. This is the book, Whispers of Womanhood. It is a collection of 21 poems that defines a woman's journey throughout her life. All the details of this book will be available in the description. Please go check it out. Now let's start with all of the books that I read in the month of September. This looks like a lot, but these are not all the books. As you can see, a few of them are repeated, and I'll tell you why that is so. The first book that I will talk about was actually something I read at the end of August, which was this book, Nothing Good by R.J. Piper. This book was released on 19th September, hence why it is still in this list. I completed this book at the end of August, and this is an ARC, an advanced reader copy of this book, which means that there can be some issues for this one. For some reason, it goes all wonky in the Kindle app, but it is completely fine when I read it in my Kindle. This is the dedication for this book, Ron DeSantis. And this book is a gay love story. It's a love story. That being dedicated to Ron DeSantis is just amazing. Now look at this. Chapter titles are kind of a weakness of mine. It is amazing when someone comes up with absolutely hilarious titles for the chapters. And look at this. Florida man commits murder. Public indecency. Florida man, bartender, cause public disturbance. Florida man, crime means bad co-workers. Florida man, revealed as incompetent stalker. Yes, it is an absolutely hilarious book, and a very detailed review of this book will actually be out this Friday. But if you want to know my initial thoughts on the book, that can be found on my Instagram page. This is the actual cover of this book. This is Rainey and this is Adler. They are both assassins, hitmen, who have been hired to kill each other but instead fall in love. It is a lot like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's just with two men. It's hilarious, it's dark comedy, it's got a lot of action. It is an amazing book. Now moving on to the next book, Loving Lee by Cozy Dubois. A very detailed review of this book is already out on this YouTube channel, which I will link. It's just been uploaded for the last few days. This is the story of Lee, which is him, who is an audio tech at Confession, a gay club, a drag club actually, and this is Antonio, who is a very famous drag queen at that club. And this book is all about their relationships and their found family. Lee has Tara, Blanche and Sunny, who are his best friends and his found family, and all of these people are just absolutely amazing. The second book of this series has recently been announced, which would be Sunny's story. This book was also an advanced reader copy that I received before the book was published, and I read it and reviewed it before it was published. The next book that I read was this book, Mages of Ruin City, which is also the same book. Again, an ARC. Mages of Ruin City was another advanced copy. Actually, all of these books, except one, was an advanced reader copy. So for Mages of Ruin City, the book was sent to me, not just me, to all the ARC readers just a week before the release, which meant that I was actually not able to read it in time because I was already in the middle of reading Loving Lee. And by the time I got around to reading this book, it was already out in Kindle Unlimited because it was released a couple of days before schedule. So because I was only a chapter in, I switched to reading it in Kindle Unlimited. This is a YA fantasy. It follows the life of Kjarsi and her adventures. This is the map in this book. You can't have a fantasy book without a map. We have 7 point of views in this book. A video review of this book will also be available very soon. I am guessing the next week. We have Kjarsi's point of view, then we have 6 other characters. As for my initial thoughts of this book, it was an amazing read. I finished it, I think, in 3 days, which is a lot for a book that is about 400 pages. Not about, it is 400 pages. And for a fantasy book to hook me on literally the very first chapter is very, very uncommon, because usually it takes me some time to get into the first book of the series because of all the world building and everything else. But this book managed to complete the world building while progressing the plot, which meant that it was extremely engaging from the very first chapter. This is part of a duology, and the second book should be out very soon. The second book has just been announced on Instagram. I think it will be releasing in the next couple of months or so. Then we have this book, which is This Fatal Kiss by Atiksha. It is again a YA fantasy novel based on a Slavic folktale. This is a poly romance. She is an undead girl who is a water nymph. He is an exorcist who is trying to exorcise her, like she's a complete pain in his life. And then we have another guy that both of these people are interested in. It's an interesting read. The Slavic folktale that this book is based on might be the basis of Princess and the Frog, only she is the frog. This that I'm showing you is actually the sample of this book, because advanced reader copy that I received was this. The formatting was completely off, but that is what happens in a lot of advanced reader copies. Sometimes you get a book that is very similar to the book that will be published, and sometimes you get a book that is nowhere near ready to be published, but that is what happens. But the book was so interesting that the lack of formatting did not bother me, although I did think initially that it would, but it did. The next advanced reader copy that I received was this, Stuck in the Middle with You by Frances M. Thompson. This is the story of two gym bros turned lovers. It's funny, it's light, it's beautiful. These are two men in their 40s. There's a lot of maturity, and the way they interact, they are both successful businessmen. Then we have Nick Nelson's quote, I am bi actually. The one book that I read that was not an advanced reader copy was this, The Keeper by Amy Nicole Walker. This is the actual cover of the book. I have the review ready for this book, but I never posted it on Instagram because I was just not comfortable posting this all over my Instagram. And there is no discrete version of this cover. But then I was looking at this book and this is here, and the review will probably be up before this video. Review is ready. I just need to put in this. This is actually book 5 in this series. The series is about a set of ex-convicted criminals finding life again after their incarceration. It's a pretty good series if you want to read it. This particular book is about an ex-convict falling in love with the current sheriff of the small town that they live in. Not only is he an ex-convict, he's also a victim and an eyewitness in a very high-profile case that the sheriff is currently trying to prosecute someone with. So not only is this forbidden for the sake of ex-convict sheriff thing, but it is also current victim and sheriff situation. Ruben, the ex-convict, has been obsessed with this man for the past 3 books at least. So it's good to finally have his feelings reciprocated and for him to find what he was looking for. The last book that I read in September is this, A Witchy Situation. This is a light, funny read. It's a novella and it is all of 155 pages. It's cute, seasonal. We have dual point of views of Noah and Ezra, who are best friends since childhood and just fall in love. This was released on the 1st of October. And it is available on Kindle Unlimited. The reason I have multiple of these books right now is this one is the only one that can be returned immediately after this video, and so can this. But for these two, I actually like to transfer all of my highlights into the Kindle Unlimited copies. It's just something I like to do, and I have not gotten around to doing that for either of these books, which as soon as I get the time to do, I will. This is the books that I read in September. There are also a bunch of audiobooks. So let's go look at that. So a little backstory here. 3 days out of the week, I travel to a university to teach, and the commute is about 1 hour each way. So I tend to listen to audiobooks at that time while I'm driving, and usually I stick to books that I have already read. I can enjoy the book again, but at the same time don't have to keep up with the plot because I already know the plot. In August, I actually read this entire series by Eden Findley and Saxon James, which was the Fuckboy series. Last month, I started reading this series. This is the CU series by, again, Eden Findley and Saxon James. I read the first two books, Power Plays and Straight A's, and Face-Offs and Cheap Shots. I reread these books like I have mentioned before, but before I could get to the third book, the app decided that I could not go forward with that because I could only access these two books before it reset yesterday. So I had to move on to other things, and because I was already on a roll with these authors, I decided to continue with their books. So Up in Flames was next, then it was The Bastard and the Heir, then I went to this series, Frat Wars, King of Thieves, and Frat Wars, Master of Mayhem, and again the rest of the series became inaccessible to me. So I went back to the Fuckboy series, which is Forbidden Fuckboy, which was released last month, and this was actually the only audiobook that I listened to that I had not read. I will read this as soon as I can find the time between all of the arcs that I am reading, but I will get back to this, and that was it. Now moving on to the October TBR part of this video. October is, as of right now, completely exclusively filled with advanced reader copies. So this one was the first release of October, which I have already talked about. The second release of October was this book, Golden Ruin. This is a sapphic novel with a little bit vibes of Cinder, the Lunar Chronicles, and a dystopian universe. It's a closed-door romance. It was released on 4th October, so it is available right now. The next book that I read was this. This is The Art, A Grumpy Witch's Guide to Finding Love. And this is the book. This was a fun book. It is inspired by Teen Wolf. Well, not exactly inspired, but there are a couple similarities in the way that the werewolf rules work. This is not an Omega-verse romance. This is just a grumpy witch finding love with a very sunshiny werewolf. This was released on 5th October. It's fun, it's light, it's fast-paced. We have a grumpy witch, we have a sunshiny werewolf, we have a resident human, we have a vegan vampire. Yes, a vegan vampire and a teenage ghost. It is perfect for the season of Halloween. The next book that is being released in October that I am reading the advance copy of, which is my current read, is this, Pawns of Celestia by H.J. Bogue. This is the book. This is not the final cover. The final cover can be found on the author's Instagram page. This is the final cover of this book. I have completed about 10% of the book and I am intrigued. I don't think it will take me a lot of time to complete this book, given that I have the time to read. On 15th of October, there are 2 arcs here that are releasing. The first one is this, Finding J.T. Demara by C.H. Maddington. This is the 3rd book in this series. The series is Once Upon a Time in Bridgeport. This is the final book. I have read the first 2 books on Kindle Unlimited. I'm looking forward to reading this book, especially like look at those chapter titles. The second book that is releasing on 15th October that I am reading the advance copy of is this, The Full Moon Problem. It again has Teen Wolf vibes. This is just a coincidence that I have 2 books releasing within a few days of each other that I have advance copies of that have Teen Wolf vibes. Not that I did not love Teen Wolf, I did. But if you've watched Teen Wolf and you know Styles and Derek, this is actually a little bit based on them. The author is also an artist who has designed this cover and this. Now on 18th of October, I have another 2 books releasing. Yes, my October is filled with arc releases. This is the first one, Allured by Van R. Som. It is an romance. It is also another book that has absolutely beautiful chapter titles. Songs that might as well be currency around here. Daddy Chill. The next book that is being released on 18th October is this, but this is the third book in the Fallen series, and these are the first two books which I also have to read. The first book is this, Fallen Idols. Thankfully, none of these books are about 800 pages long, so I should be able to finish it in time, as long as I'm doing well so far, so it should be good. This is the second book, which is Fallen Foes, and the third book of the Fallen Favorite series, Fallen Souls. I might be delayed in completing and reviewing this particular book, mainly because I have to read two other books to get to the advanced reader copy of the book that I will be reviewing. I will be reviewing the other two books too, so this might be slightly delayed, but not by much. The last book that I have is this, My Mother's Ridiculous Rules for Dating. This will be released on 24th of October. It's a rom-com. I think this one is 355 pages if I remember correctly, so it should not be an issue. And that is all the ebooks that I plan on reading in October. And if I am able to complete these books in time, I should be able to get to the books that are not advanced reader copies. My Kindle Unlimited is overflowing, and so is my physical TBR. The two books in my physical TBR that are in this month's list are these. The first is this, Quill Your Darlings by Ronai Aldame. I'm actually using this currently as my journal. I'm using the poems and prosas of this book, which I will not open the page that I have written into, but that is what I'm using it as. So I have absolutely zero intention of completing this book in this month, but yes, I have started this. And the second book that I want to read in this month, the physical copy, is this, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Hopefully I can get to it. If not, it'll just carry over into the next month. This book is on the list of 100 best books written by women of all time that I had compiled. That list can be found on my Instagram, and I wanted to start reading one book a month from that list, and this is the one that I chose to be the first book, mainly because it's not a very thick book. Let's see if I can do that. And as far as the audiobooks are concerned, I will be continuing with the book series that I was reading previously, and I don't focus a lot on audiobooks because that is just basically a way for me to read more while I'm traveling and doing nothing. When you have 6 hours of travel every week with no one around, you have to use that time wisely. Sometimes I do listen to music when I'm in the mood for it, but mostly it is audiobooks. So I'll just continue with the series that I was already reading or listening to, and it should be fine. I'm not worried about the audiobooks. So that will be all for this video. I actually assumed that it would take me a lot more time, which is why you see this clock here, but I completed it in good time. So thank you so much for staying with me, and I'll see you all on Friday with the book review of Nothing Good, and next Monday I will be sharing my writing update and more about poetry book that was recently released. Hopefully I will get some physical copies by that point and will be able to share what those look like. If not, I might postpone that video for the week after, and the next week you will get a book haul of the books that I got in September. There are a total of 9 books, so it's not a lot of books, but it is a lot of books, especially considering that I got about 60 books in the past couple of months, which can be found on previous videos, which I will again link. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions about the books that I read or the poetry book that was recently released, please feel free to ask those questions either here in the comments or on my Instagram. Thank you so much for staying with me. I'll see you all later. Bye.